This is a short demo of the new Sveltos tech support feature. Tech support allows collecting logs, events, and resources from both the management cluster and all the managed clusters. All the data collected can be delivered to Slack, WebEx, Telegram, Discord, and by mail. For this demo, I prepared 3 clusters, an EKS, GKE, and a Sivo cluster. And all those clusters are managed by Sveltos. So the Sivo cluster is running version v1.35, the EKS cluster is running version v1.31.4, and the GKE cluster is running version v1.36. The management cluster is a kind cluster where I've deployed Sveltos and from where I'm managing all my cloud clusters. I'll prepare the tech support instance, and we can look at this tech support YAML. On demand is set to true, which means that as soon as I'm going to create this tech support instance in the management cluster, Sveltos is going to collect all the necessary resources. I want the collected data to be sent over Slack, and the secret into the file namespace called Slack contain the channel where I want this to be sent. And I have this section from management. And in this section here, I'm instructing Sveltos to collect what type of resources to collect. So I want to collect the cluster profile. I want to collect the cluster summary in all namespaces. And I want to collect the secret instance in the project Sveltos namespace. I'm also instructing Sveltos to collect all logs from all the pods in the project Sveltos namespace, and I want to collect all events in the project Sveltos namespace. And there is another section from manage. In this section here, I have a cluster selector, which is selecting from which clusters I want to collect. And I'm matching all clusters with label type production, and Sivo, EKS, and GK cluster all have this label. And I'm telling Sveltos that I want to collect all config maps in the project Sveltos namespace, and I want to collect logs from the project Sveltos namespace and the kube system namespace. But for the logs in the kube system namespace, I only want to collect the last 10 minutes of log. And finally, I want to collect all the events in the project Sveltos namespace. So I'm going to apply tech support instance. As soon as this tech support is created, Sveltos is going to start collecting the data, and I expect a notification to be delivered here with all the collected data. The tech support has been collected, and this is the attachment. It says Sveltos tech support.tart.gz, which contains all the information to ask Sveltos to collect. I download this file, and we can look at this file. So it does contain 2 subdirectories, the management cluster directory and the managed clusters directory. Let's start from the management cluster. The management cluster contains 3 subdirectories, events, logs, and resources, and a file called version.txt. This file contains the version of my management cluster, which, as we saw, was 1.32.0. The resources directory contains all the resources that I want to collect, and I want to collect a cluster profile. Cluster profiles are cluster-wide resources, so we can see that there are 2 cluster profiles. We can look at one of this cluster profile. This cluster profile, it's a cluster profile, and it has the spec, and it has the status section, and the status section contains all the clusters that are matching this instance. Cluster summary instead are namespaces resources. So when I go inside the cluster summary, it's telling me that you found cluster summary instance in those 3 namespaces, Sivo, EKS, and GK. If I go into Sivo namespace, I'll find the cluster summary which is present in this namespace. If I go into EKS namespace, directly I'll find the cluster summary which were in this EKS namespace, and same for the GK directly. When I look at the logs, I asked Sveltos to collect logs from all pods in the project Sveltos namespace, and I can see all the pods from all these Sveltos, the logs from all these Sveltos pods. And finally, the events directory contains all the events from the project Sveltos namespace, which are sorted by the timing. We go back to the top. The managed clusters instead contains one subdirectory for every managed cluster, which was matching the cluster selector. As I mentioned, both the Sivo, AKS, and GKE had the label type production, so they were all matching the cluster selector in the Techsupport instance. So if we select the Sivo directory, we find that it contains the same structure that we saw for the management cluster. An events, a logs, and a resources subdirectories, and a file version txt, which contains the version of my Sivo cluster, which was 135. We look at the resources. It contains again the resources, and we ask to collect the config maps from the project Sveltos namespace. So this config map is being collected. We also ask to collect the logs from the project Sveltos namespace and the kube system namespace, and those logs are there. We can look at one of those logs, for instance. This is an empty log, and look at one of the project Sveltos namespace logs. We can see that all the logs have been collected. Now, if we go to the EKS cluster, we find the same structure. EKS cluster was called the EKS cluster, and it contains again events, logs, and resources and the version file, which contains the version of my EKS cluster, which is v1.31.4. And then all the resources that we wanted to collect, and logs from project Sveltos and kube system namespace, and events from the project Sveltos namespace. And of course, same for the GK cluster. The structure is absolutely the same. Now, this is how easy it is with Sveltos to collect what is necessary to debug. And in this case, the Techsupport that I used, it's going to collect all the resources that I need, all the data that I need if someone is running into an issue using Sveltos and I need to debug it offline. The Techsupport can be scheduled on demand, as I did in this example, or can be scheduled using a cron job. And it can be delivered to Slack, WebEx, Discord, Telegram, by mail, and I'm also adding an SFTP support. Thank you.